we have. We are looking at the practical aspects of part of those things we have taken our time to explain. Remember, we talked about taking our time to explain what data science is all about, and we have also discussed the various algorithms that are involved in data science, such as the unsupervised and the supervised. We talk about the different techniques in unsupervised machine learning. So, and one of them, remember under the steps that we have from step 1 to step 6. So one of the steps was data preparation, and that is what we shall be looking at this morning. Look at data preparation, because I told us that the entire unsupervised machine learning is actually more of data cleaning and data restructuring. That is, perfecting and giving our data a suitable shape that can be passed into a predictive analysis model. That is what we have been talking about. So let's start by looking at, I'm going to use comments, because let me import my library before we can actually start reshaping our data set. So import, make sure you are documenting your notes, import libraries. Import libraries. Let's see if I can increase. So import library. So as usual, we'll say import pandas as PD. Import pandas as PD. As PD. Then we can as well, or let me just take it from here so to make our work easier. So we have imported pandas as PD, and then we need to create a simple data frame which has a lot of errors that we are going to learn different techniques on how to reshape such data sets. So just to make my work faster, so what we are doing now is data prep, so in case we want to know the topic. So let me quickly add another row so I can label it for proper understanding. So let me add another one here, move it up. So what we are actually learning now is introduction to data preparation. So let's say introduction to data preparation. So I'll make that a note. So what I will do, I will mark it down. I'll come here and select mark down, and then hit Shift and Enter to make it a complete note, just to give my notebook a description. So now that we have imported the required library, let's create a simple data frame. Let's create a simple data frame. So I've already prepared the data frame. So by the time you go through the video, what you will do is to replicate it. To replicate it is to make sure that make sure that you recompute this particular data set that I'm working with. Close this section so that we can see it very well. So just try and recompute it, because it's a manually created data frame, unlike when we used to call it from CSV. So we'll have just used our CSV function to load it. In this case, I just created a dictionary. Remember, we talked about dictionary in data analysis section. So just to save our time, all you need to be able to create this data set is for you to import your library, which is pandas. So since it's not a much data set, that is why we are not involving NumPy, because if it has, Adibin is a very large data set where we want Python to be able to exploit it and present it in a proper shape, we will have needed NumPy. So let me just take it here. Ctrl+C and simply paste here. So once I run it, I should be able to get my data set. So there is an error. So let's find out what the error is. Let's find out what the key error is. See, no model name pandas. How true could this be? Let's check. Import. Oh, right. We made mistake here. Instead of n, we put n. Sorry. Instead of n, we put n, pandas. Let's run it. So we have our data set here. Okay, so now, so like I said, we have been able to read our data set. So the next thing we want to look at is I need to explain a little bit. If I'm with my slides, I will have prompted us the theoretical aspect of data preparation or data modeling prep. So these are common data preparation steps required to transform your source data into a format that can be directly imputed into an unsupervised learning model. So if, let me just use comment to explain part of this since I'm not with my slide. So what we are talking about is pre-modeling data. To see if I can remove this section so that we can view it properly. Good. All right. So I was trying to describe, just to give us an overview of what this exercise is all about. So like I was saying, these are common. These are common data prep steps require to transform your source data into a format that can be directly input into an unsupervised learning. Hope you are making your note as well. Unsupervised learning model. Unsupervised learning model. So these are the techniques from the slides we have discussed them. If you remember, we talked about the group by and the pivots. I don't know if it was your class. If you can respond. I know we must have discussed that in the slide. So if it is not your class, but you just have to know that there are under data preparation techniques. We have the group by, which is also used to transform our data. Remember, I just told us now that the whole of the exercise, or almost 90% of unsupervised machine learning, focuses on transforming data. That is, you are cleaning your data, you are reshaping the data to a more suitable structure that at the end of this section can be passed into a model that can be used to predict, or that can be used to perform predictive analysis. So that is actually our mission. And remember, I told us in that class that we spend 80% of our time to perfect, to clean, and to restructure, to reshape our given data sets as far as data science is concerned. And then we just spend 20% of our time to analyze the data. Because in data science, once you have been able to put your model in place, you as human, you are not doing much work. The only aspect where you are doing much work is the aspect of restructuring, of cleaning the data, perfecting the data that can be passed into analytics model. So in data science, the way data is given to us, most time it is very impossible for us to just train the machine on such data, for the machine to understand it and be able to use it to perform predictive analysis. So that is why we have the unsupervised machine learning. That is where you, as a data scientist, take time to perfect it, to reshape it to the best format that can be used by those models you are going to design in supervised learning that will help you to draw the insight and give you all the necessary information you need from the data set that will aid your decision making. I hope you understand what I just explained now. So I did this explanation so that you understand what exactly we are doing here. Why is this important? Why is this important? So there are techniques that are involved for you to be able to perfect your data. and we shall be looking at some of them in this section. So we have our data set already, and we want to prepare it for modeling or for analysis. So some of the things we are going to ensure is that, so let me make this as a note. Let me make this as a note. So one of the things we are going to do, one, let's say setting the correct row as part of data reshaping, setting the correct row granularity. So there's what we call granularity, so you understand all this once we get to the practical aspect. Granularity. So which means that making sure that each row in your data, at the correct level, for your data analysis. So that is one thing you are going to ensure, to make sure that all our rows are in the correct level for data analysis. So we refer to that as rows granularity. We are going to see it on this data set that we have here, but I just want us to understand the theoretical aspect of it. So number two, in preparing our data, we will also be ensuring each column is not empty, null. So we are also going to make sure that we remove all the NaN. Remember, from your data analysis section, you understand what NaN is. Hope you are with me, please. Let me get a response, just to know if you are following. Please unmute and respond. I just want to know if you are following.
I'm with you.
All right. Now, null and numeric. That is, we are going to ensure that we don't have missing values, and all the values under each of the columns, they are numbers. So that is only type of data structure that can be suitable for the predictive analysis. So it's part of what we are going to ensure that our data is transformed into. So numeric, which means making sure columns are, is once you finish responding, you mute yourself. Making sure that columns are numeric, so that your model so that your model can represent them. So that is one thing we are going to ensure. So all this falls under data preparation. So let's still look at one more thing we are going to do. We are also going to be engineering. So there are times we have to create different features. Remember, I told us from our last class that features in data science are referred to the headers in your data set or frame. Modeling features. So in the course of trying to perfect our data set for predictive analysis, we will ensure all this. So in ensuring all this, it falls under unsupervised, name for columns or attributes. That is another term to describe columns. They are also called attributes. Now, another thing we are going to ensure, this should be number 3, documentation purpose. This is number 4, under data preparation for analysis modeling. We will also ensure or will also be involved in data selection. That is selecting features. So there are some points we will be away with some headers and pick some that are more relevant to what we want to achieve. So we will also be involved in selection of features and excluding identifier. We'll explain what that means once we get to the practical section, columns. So which can translate to removing unique. So what we mean by identifier here, they are called what? Unique headers. Let me be using some of these common terms, or features. Anywhere, anytime I use the word feature, it also means header. So it's part of what we are going to be doing under data preparation, which is still under the unsupervised learning. Another thing we are going to do, which is the fifth one, is scaling of our data. Scaling features. We're going to be scaling features as well for distance based on supervised learning algorithm. Okay, so now that we now know our objective, so all these that I've listed out, they are like the objective, what we want to achieve under data preparation, which is a must aspect of machine learning, particularly under the unsupervised. So once we hear unsupervised machine learning, just know that it involves you preparing your data. And while you are going to engage in that, you are going to be dealing with all these 5 things that I've mentioned, starting from ensuring that you have good rules, regularity, and then also setting your rows granularity rather, and then ensuring each column is null, non-null, and all the values under each of the attributes or columns are numeric and numbers. So these are some of the things we are going to do. Engineering features, that is, at some point we are going to be recreating more headers. And the reason for that is that we must have considered the current one not being passable into a predictive analytics model. So we'll have to re-engineer at some point. While we are doing that, is an attempt to make sure that we have a suitable information that can be passed into a predictive analytics model under the supervised. So everything we are doing here, we are like perfecting the data so that when we get to the supervised section of this program, we already have a perfected data ready to go into the system for training and also creating a sample for the analysis you want to perform. So all this will be involved. So now let's quickly talk about reshaping our data set. Reshaping our data set, that is our next topic. So let me use this. Reshaping. So all this falls under how we are going to ensure the granularity. So reshaping data, that is the next topic, the reshaping data. Reshaping data. So what do we mean by reshaping data? So let me also mark down and press Shift and Enter just to have it as a header. So here, let me just explain briefly. So under the reshaping, we are adopting the first method, which is row granularity, like we have mentioned in the previous cell. Granularity. Remember, I told you that row granularity is about ensuring that you don't have missing value and that you are reshaping the height of your data set. Okay, so row granularity. So that is where this data reshaping fall into. Now, just to explain briefly before we implement it on the above data set. So common ways to achieve this, common ways to reshape data to the correct common way to reshape data to the correct rows. Granularity. So let's quickly discuss the techniques we are going to use. Number one, hope you are also documenting. Number one is using the group by function. Group by function to combine all records with the same ID column into a single column. or single row. So this is one of the methods, and we are going to see all that in this section. So the second method is using the dot pivot, using the dot pivot, pivot function. So anytime you want to set your data set row granularity, is either you use the group by function or you use the dot pivot. So we're going to see their practical application in a moment. So both of them are actually targeting the same function. So it depends on you which one you feel is more flexible for you. Transform data. Both of them are used for transforming our data, which is still under the unsupervised learning techniques. So the emphasis here is long. To transform a long format data to a wide format. Now, let's call back that our data set, the DF, the one we created at the top. Now, if you look at this data now, I want us to study so that we know the reason for transforming it with any of these methods, either the group by or the pivot. So I want you to look at the column customer. You have area, you have area, you have area. Now, these three records, they are for one person. So remember that this is a movie, this is a data set that was probably collected from a movie website that have analyzed the interests of different people across different songs. So what we are seeing here is that the first record, which is Aria listened to pop type of music or music, and then he listened to that song 50 times. Aria also listened to ED 48 times. That same Aria also listened to rock 1 time. So you can see that Aria is repeated. So for us to reduce, we want to reduce the length, let's say the height of the data set, and then increase the wideness. And that is what I just said under the using the pivot table, transform data from a long format to a wide format. Why are we doing that? We are supplying this data into a predictive analysis model under supervised. Meanwhile, we are in unsupervised learning aspect, which means that everything we are doing right now, we are only trying to reshape the data into a more suitable structure that the supervised model find better to analyze the data. So what we are saying is that when data set is structured in a way that the height is reduced and the wideness is increased, it is more suitable to be analyzed by the predictive analysis model. And that is why we are learning all these techniques. So in case you are given any data set where there is need for us to work on the row granularity, that is reducing the height and increasing the length of the data set. So in this case now, the whole of this can be represented in one row since a record from one person. So that would now automatically save us 1, 2, because we'll now use row 0 to represent all the activities of area. So we can go on and on like that. We can also have other places where we have the same person listening to a different song, different number of times, like we have it here. We have chord here, we have chord here. So we can convert, we can collapse, we can represent chord record in one row, just like we are going to represent the whole of aria record in one row. That we end up reducing the length, that is the height of the data, and end up increasing the what? The width. Why? How is that going to be possible? So now, if we are representing 1, 2, 3 in one row, then this pop will now become a header. This ED will now become a header. Then all the unique songs that they listen to will now become header. That is why it's going to end up increasing the numbers of header. So you end up increasing the number of header and reducing the number of rows. So when that happens, it is called row granularity in this field. I want to get a response, please, if you understand what I just explained now.
I understand.
All right. So you can mute. Thank you. Okay. So now that you understand the concept of row granularity, let's quickly start with one of the method recommended, which is what? Dot group by. I told us that there are two commonly used methods to apply or to apply the row granularity. It's either you use the dot group by or you use dot pivot. So I'm going to start with dot group by. So if I'm starting with dot group by, the first thing I'm going to do is to let me see if I can start with just give me a minute. I'm trying to assess which one will give me a better. Okay, so let's start with the group by. So the topic will now become data reshaping using dot group by function. Using dot group by function. Okay, so just to understand what we want to do, what exactly do we want to do? What is the task? Because you need to, assume you are asked to do this in your workplace. So what is the task? So the task is I want to know for each, I want to know for each customer, because you must know your intent. For each customers, how many songs they listen to. That is your intention. And then, and be able to aggregate. And aggregate, make sure you are following, because at some point I may ask you to perform it, or I give it to you as an assignment, which must be submitted before the next class, to aggregate them. So this is exactly what I want to achieve. From the data you are seeing above, you want to make sure that each row represents each customer, because if you check what I was explaining before now, you can see that we have 3 good rows representing one customer. But at the end of my row granularity, I will end up restructuring or reshaping the data in a way that each row will represent one customer. And that is the method that is going to help me to reduce the height of the data and end up increasing the width. So what is going to be the syntax? Remember what I told us about syntax. Syntax are the standard. They are the set of rules that guides us when programming. So having an idea of the syntax is very important so that you know how to write your function. So the syntax is, we are going to call, let me explain it first. Syntax is, okay, let me just go straight since you are not a beginner. Now, the syntax is, we start by calling, referencing the name of our data sets or frame, which is the frame, DF. So the DF in this case is the name of the data set you are seeing right here. So we are going to concatenate. Concatenation means you are joining. That is, you are coding the function on the data set called DF. So I will now call the name of my function, which is the group by, and being a function, it must have the parentheses bracket. Now, like I've explained in our data analysis section, once a function is activated with the parentheses bracket, it means that the function is asking for data to work with. And those data that will be supplied into the function, they are known as the function input or parameter or argument. So once you open it like this, it's asking for the argument. So what will be the argument? Looking at your tax, I want to know for each customer how many songs they listen to, which means that the criteria for summarizing this record is based on the column of customer. So what I'm going to do, I will just, customer is a string. And remember what you learned from basic Python. If you are storing or referencing string, it must be what? Quoted. So the customer in our data set, most times to avoid error, what I do is to simply copy it. What I do sometimes is to simply copy it from the data frame itself to avoid error. So you highlight it. So Control C. Then you will now Control V. So which means that this is the criteria for the grouping. You must specify a particular column that we add as a criteria for grouping audit. Now, if you want your code to be, now let me just give you this format first. I will show you another easiest or easier way you can achieve this. Now you come outside the function bracket. So the only parameter that we have given to the function is the header that will be used as the criteria for ensuring that each customer uses one row. Now, you will now have to select. Remember, we did data selection techniques in data analysis section. So you select. So once you introduce your square bracket, you will now want to pick a particular header where the songs that they listen to are computed, because you said that you want to know for each customer how many songs. So you call out the header with the song's description. So now you go back to the data set. If you are not sure of what it is, go back to the data set, then copy it the way it is. Copy it the way it is, Control C as well, and then move down also. Then come to this. Now it is also a string. Therefore, we have to what? Quote it. So we paste. So that is the criteria for the grouping. Now, you also mentioned in order to aggregate them. You mentioned aggregate. Look at it here. You mentioned aggregate, which means that there will be a kind of summation calculation that will take place. So you now concatenate the sum function after selecting the header where you have the songs that you want to what group under customer's header. So I will just simply say sum, and then it's a function. So once I implement this, you will notice that it will summarize the entire data. So let's run it. So you can see what we have now. So which means that what we have the total number of songs area listened to are now what 99. So how did we got that 99? So I want us to call out the data set again. So if I say df, I don't want to scroll up. I call it out, you will agree with me how the sum function got 90. Was it 91 or 99? 99. So you can see here the same area 50, the same area 48. If you add 48 plus 50, you are going to have 98. Then the same area listen to rock song one time, which is what the reason why we have that why we have the 99. And then the same thing to chord. So you can see that with this technique now, we have actually reduced the length, that's the height of the data, and we are about to want to increase it. Now there is a challenge here. Do you have any question first, please? Do you have any question? Please respond.
No questions.
Okay, so now there is a challenge. The challenge we have here is, or like I wanted to explain, we can actually represent this in a more readable. So once you have responded, please remember to mute. Done that already for you. Now, another thing is that you can see that this particular record that we just called, we can actually rewrite it in a better way. We can write it horizontally. I'm talking about the function. We can also write it vertically. Because where you define more attributes like we are going to do in a moment, there will be need for you to separate them to have a better readable format for your coding. So I'm going to say this to make your code more readable. To make your code more readable, envelope the entire code, in a square bracket, sorry, in parentheses bracket. So example easy. So I will just open this bracket like this, then copy the whole code. Just a minute. So copy the whole code like this, Control C, and paste it inside the bracket. And then once you have enveloped it this way, you can now begin to break them. can now separate it. You can decide to say, okay, from here, you come down. And then you can now use comma to separate your code. So you can as well write your code vertically like this, provided all your codes are in a square bracket. Now, all right, so, but there's another issue. So if I run this code now, we get the same result. There's another issue. The issue is that our data index number, that is ID, they are not displayed. For example, you actually aggregated customer against song from what you selected here. But after your execution, it is only customer that is displaying song. That is, there's supposed to be header here, hash song. So why are we having this? For us to correct this, we are going to add an attribute. So let me explain that. To add dot reset underscore index function. So what this will do is to display the records IDs. That is what it's going to do. So how do we achieve this? I will simply copy the whole of this line, this code, and bring it here just for me to update it. So I will just come after the sum. Remember, I was talking about you can break it down and then you write dot reset underscore index. So if I run it now, I have my numbers, and then now I can see the header for the total number of songs each customer listen to. Is that clear? Respond, please. Always be prompt about it.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So don't be saying here, because I'll give you assignment before on Friday class. You must make sure that everything that I have done so far, so that is why I'll send you the video, you explain it just like the way I explain it. So if you don't understand any part, please kindly notify so that I can re-explain. All right, so that is for group I. Remember, we are still talking about the commonly used method for row granularity, that is to reduce the height of our data sets and end up increasing the width. Now, the next thing is that if you call df, let's assume we call df, we are going to be having the same old data structure. So which means that as far as Python is concerned, it's not recognizing this one that we have regularized, we have granularized this very one. It doesn't recognize it. So we have to save this in a valid data set. We have to save this in a valid data set in a way that you don't overwrite the original data. So as one of the standard, you are not supposed to lose the original data, because at some point there might be need for you to record it. So what you will do is, since you have not updated, what you are going to do is for you to save this particular one with a different name. So I will just save it as, so let me use comments so that when you are going through the video, it will be more explanatory. So here is, let's say, finally, save the transform version in a new data frame or variable. So to do that, I'll simply say customer underscore songs. So let me just use this to save it. Then I'll say equals to. Then I'll copy the entire code that generated the transform copy, Control C, and paste it after the equal sign. Now, if I run it, I have the result now stored in this. And for me to view this, to view the results, so all I need to do is to call the name of the variable, Control C, and paste. Then run it, then I have my output in a valid variable. So we have settled that now. So the next method is the pivot. I just want to cover both of them. I believe from now to Friday is enough for you to have mastered them. So this is how you can use group by. We have been able to use group by a function to perform our rows granularity, which have enabled our data height to be reduced at the moment. Now, and again, we also achieve our aim. Remember, our aim is here. I want to know for each customer how many songs they listen to. So with the help of the sum, you can now see that you now know for each customer, like Aria, listen to 99 songs. Chord, listen to 51 songs. Harmony, listen to what? 18. Then melody, listen to 2. Then read, listen to 5. So now let's quickly look at row granularity. Using the dot pivot function. So that same thing that we achieve with the group by is what we want to achieve with pivot. So it's now left for you as a data scientist, whichever one you feel that is more comfortable. So I don't have to explain much because it's the same concept. So I'll just simply look at the syntax. So we are using the original data. So you can see the reason why it's good for you to always retain the source data, because now that you want to use the source data to perform that same thing you did or task you did with a group by, you will have been looking for raw data to start all because you have already granularized the other data, so you can't use it. So I will just call back my df. So this is the df, the original data. So what I'm going to do here is to quickly concatenate the pivot. So here, just make sure you take note of the code structure. So you are going to start by defining your index. Remember the other one, we just quoted what? Customer. But in the case of pivot, you are going to capture that customer, which is the criteria for summarizing the number of songs they listen to with index attributes. So index is an attribute. It is not a function. An attribute gives more information about the function. So the index in this case is an attribute or pivot function that describes the criteria header, which is what the customer. Sorry. Customer. Then while you are still inside the bracket, you bring your comma. So you now have to define the columns where you have the song. You have to define the column, and that will involve another attribute. So the attributes will now be columns equals to. Then you specify gen, specify gen. So you have to define then the values for the summary, comma, values is another attribute. So we're actually involving three different attributes. The first one is the index, the one capturing the criteria for the summary of the number of songs they listen to. The next one is the gen, which is the one that is capturing where the different types of songs are recorded. Then the one is the value, because we are definitely involving some function which can only work with integer. So we are going to define our value, our header value, the header with the number that the sum is going to what? Summarize. So, and that will be it will be this particular header. So I'll take it here. So most time I prefer copying from the data set to avoid typographical error. So now you have defined all the necessary attributes. So if I run this now, you see what I get. So with this, I'm able to see, based on this structuring, we have NEN. So remember, one of our objectives for data preparation to ensure that we don't have none, and also all the numbers, all the values under the columns, they are numeric. Don't forget, that was the reason why I was giving us that note. If I can just quickly go there to remind you what we are talking about. Number one, setting the correct rule. Are you still here? Okay, I can see you. Now, setting the correct row granularity, making sure that, oh, there was a typographical error here. Making sure that each row in your data set have making sure that each row in your data set, a lot of typographical. Okay, so if you are with me, so you can see how this reshaped the data set. So when using pivots, okay, so when using pivots, so this is how the data is reshaped. That same data that we tried using the group by, this is what we got using this. Now, there is need for us to rearrange it. There's a need for us to rearrange it. Since we have NEN, the next thing we are going to do is to fill the missing value, because it's one of those things we said we want to ensure. So here, let's say we observed that that there are missing values. There are missing values. So how do we remove them? Therefore, to replace, because we don't want to delete them, to replace them, use dot fill now. It's part of those functions we have already mastered in data analysis section. So the syntax will simply be, we copy the whole of this, what generated that structure, we paste it, then we will just add, remember, let's put everything in square brackets so that we can break it the way we want, like I told you the other time. So it can be vertical. So if it is vertical, what I'll be doing is that I can just break here, then break from the comma, after the comma. Then here, I will just break here and dot fill now, dot fill now, dot fill now, and then supplies the value, let's say 0. Now, if I run it, I'll have the same value, but now this time around, I've been able to what? To replace all the NaN because it's one of our objective. So we are given this data with a lot of NaN. There are places where they did not listen, or some people did not listen to some, which are the ones Python has already translated to NaN. But you cannot pass such data structure to analytics model with NaN. That is why you are retreating the data, trying to perfect it. So we have done that. So the next thing is that we are also having that challenge we had in the case of the group by. How do I know? There's no index, no number, no numbers, no rows number. So we will do that same thing that we did to add, or let's say to add index, which means to display the what? The IDs. We simply add it here. So I will just copy the whole of this, Control C, and then also come here, then paste. So I will just go down here. I will just say dot what? Reset, just like we did it in the case of group by reset index. Then just to have a proper arrangement of my code, so I will also maintain. That was the reason why I have to envelope them in square bracket. So with this, I have all the headers well listed and been able to add what? A serial number. Is that clear? Please, I need a response. Sharp one, respond, just to know if you are there. Joseph, are you there? Okay. Or there is a kind of there's a reaction.
Yes, I'm here. I understand.
There's a reaction icon within your Zoom panel. Sometime if I ask, you can just just show it instead of waiting for you. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is like we did. Good, thank you very much. Now, like we did in the case of a group by, there's need for us to save it because if I call df now, it's still showing the unstructured data. So which means that I have to also save this in a valid data set. So what I'm going to do in order to differentiate it, this other one I think we use what did we use for the group by? We use customer. Now this one I will use customers. I will add the S just to differentiate the copy I got with group by and the one with what? Pivot function. So let me use comment. So therefore to save the organize pivot data in a valid data frame, I will simply paste this, just add S to it, so that will make it different from the other one. Or I can even say pivots underscore, but let me say use it because it's the same data. So equals to, so I will just copy the entire code that generated the pivot copy and paste it here. So now I have saved it in a valid variable. Now, if I want to see it, to view the outcome, you the outcome, simply call the name of the variable. You capture everything in your notes, simply call the variable name. So now, which is customers, this and then. So with this, I think we have done justice. So assignment, so far so good. What we have learned is row granularity, which is one of the common techniques for under unsupervised learning, unsupervised machine learning. So specifically, what we have learned how to reshape our data using two method or function, the dot group by and the pivot. Then we have also been able to represent our customers in one row instead of duplicating them across different rows that have ended up reducing the height and also increasing the width. And that is what we are. Initially, the data set was having just 3 headers. But now you are having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our goal achieved. Now, assignment here is, I'm going to send you, let me see how I will write this assignment for you. So I'm going to send you a data set. Let me quickly send that before to send you a data set. Where is it set? Is your send you a data set. So I'll tell you how you go about the data set from the assignment. Do I have it safe? Okay, what we do is that let me just zip the whole of this because subsequently we'll be getting some of our data from here. So I will just send you the zip version. So you will just unzip it. Okay, so from Mr. Prosper, a lead data scientist. So this is how they can actually put it on you. Subject. Please format. Please format.
Can I get the video of this class?
Yes, you will.
Yeah, after this one. All right, thank you.
Data for analysis. So hi. Hi, yeah. Hi. I hear you are the new associates. We are the new associate data and team. Welcome. We currently working on a project. Segment students is on their on their entertainment preference. You format the data in its student format student. It is at the correct row granularity for students. Students learn analysis. So this is the question. So let me just give you some hints at the end of the whether you're doing the right assignment. Key objective. Assignment key objective. 1. Read the Excel. So it's part of what I've sent to you. Read the Excel file into a pandas data frame. Data frame. Then 2. Check the numbers of rows and columns. Check the numbers of rows and columns. Rows and columns. 3. Hope you are still here. 3. Determine the row granularity. Granularity needed. 4. So 4, apply correct data frame. Transform. Is found. Then 5. 5. Save the transform. Copy as a new data frame. Then the last option, which is this, check. Check the number of rows and column. So finally, hints. Hints. Hint. The new data frame should have 150 rows. This is how you will know. All right, so that brings us to the end of this section. So in our next class, we'll look at solutions for the assignments if you could not get it. So even though you are able to get it, we will just look at it and know if you did the right thing. And then before we move to the next data preparation techniques, which is going to be involved column modeling, because everything we did now is more of row modeling. See you on Friday. Thank you.